Before we begin, council, please put away cell phones. If you have personal business during the meeting, please move for a recess. As a reminder to all attendees, this meeting is being streamed live. The camera is located directly above the clock in the back of the council chambers. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cottle.
Here.
Councilmember Graham.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson is absent and excused unless there's objection from the body. Councilmember Crafton.
Here.
Councilmember Velock.
Here.
Councilmember Rubeo.
Here.
You do have a quorum, Madam Mayor. All council members are with us in chambers except Councilmember Johnson, who is absent.
Okay. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Ms. Rubio, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item of business is approval of the agenda. Are there changes to the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is approved as presented. We are now at public hearing. There is one ordinance scheduled for public hearing this evening. The public hearing on ordinance serial number 24-24 is continued from the May 29th, 2024 special city council meeting. Madam Clerk, please read the ordinance by title.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's providing for the adoption of the annual budget for fiscal year 2025 and appropriating funds to carry out said budget.
Anyone wishing to testify on ordinance serial number 2424, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Okay, seeing no one, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 24-24?
Madam Mayor, I move we adopt ordinance serial number 2424.
Is there a second?
Rubeo seconds.
It's been moved by Councilmember Velock and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to adopt ordinance serial number 24-24. Is there a discussion? Okay, council, we have amendments and we also have a list of questions. So how would you prefer this to be handled?
Madam Mayor, there was some new information passed out immediately prior to the meeting. If we could just ask finance to see if any of these, to go through these changes, if any of them were substantial. We haven't had a chance to review those yet before we take a look at amendments.
Okay, Cassie?
What you have attached in the memorandum that I passed out, the following are pages 61, 97, and 132. 61 is the human resources replacement page. We discussed this on the May 22nd meeting that there was a clerical error in regards to the legal line item, which has been moved from advertising up into the legal line item for a total of $54,000. That does not change the proposed overall budget for human resources. It just moves line items between advertising and the legal line item. In regards to code compliance, this was just a simple calculation percentage error under the other. I had it as 100%, just needed to be re-updated to 0%. There was no changes to the actual fiscal amount items for 2025. In regards to the general fund non-departmental on page 132, the FY 2024 amended budget on that May 22nd meeting also, I had noted that when we had entered into the data for the amended budget, we had copied over FY 23 actuals, and therefore I have updated that amount from the 3.3 million that it was into the new number of 5.7 million, which is the same as the adopted budget at that point in time. So it's just an update of that amended budget to clarify that. And therefore the percentage changes have been updated per that, along with the differences between FY24 and FY25. In regards to the next set of pages, this is for the enterprise funds. This has been amended for the FY '24 amended budget column, and the water enterprise fund and the airport enterprise fund were revised to add some additional projects, capital projects that were added in FY '24. These were just not keyed in when we were doing our amended budget line items, and so those have been updated. They do not change anything with the FY '25 budget, and therefore all the pages attached basically update charts, pie charts that go along with it and information along that. Otherwise, nothing else has changed within this information. And then the very back, about 6 pages, this has just updated the narrative, and this narrative has been updated to reflect the new FY '24 budget amounts to match that. So no changes have actually been made to the FY 2020 budget, and therefore the ordinance as it's been presented is still the same. It's just some additional changes that have been made for clerical reasons.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Now, do you want questions or do you want the amendments?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to hear some of these questions that got brought forward first before we discuss amendments.
Okay. Madam Deputy Administrator, you want to start on the questions?
Madam Mayor. Eric, right here.
Oh,
So,
sorry.
if, I'll just kind of caveat how we'll go through this. So, I have the answers to most questions. Deputy Administrator will take the lobbyist, and then Finance Director Cassie will take the library question, and then I'll answer the rest. So, that's kind of what
Okay.
we're going to do.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The question that was asked is to make a list of accomplishments in 2024, working with a lobbyist, and some of the goals for 2025. And so I did make a list that I can hand out. Some of the accomplishments in 2024, just for the record, is he was very instrumental in working through the process to get 20 additional REPL alcohol licenses. We secured $1.5 million in wastewater treatment improvements and $2.2 million for the interconnect project that will go to the borough and then be invested into the interconnect. We had an existing NOV with the ADEC for our pilot project that we got closed. Additionally, there was $50 million for state and federal funding for the Wasilla Fishhook Main. More on a state level, they did pass a $7.5 million daycare assistance and $5.2 for the Head Start program, which works into workforce development. People, we hear that continually when businesses are moving here. They can find employees, but they need daycare of some sort. Of course, they had $680 per student. Although that is not a funding responsibility that we have, there again, it does play into businesses moving here and the employees. We also created a letter for the FAA, the Reauthorization Act that was going through Congress, specific to the economic benefits to our runway length. We met with the Sullivan staff, we met with the Murkowski staff. Sullivan staff primarily to understand how we could word the economic development, and that portion of the FAA Reauthorization Act did pass. And so the way that they are funded is through the AIP funding for the airport, so we're working through that right now. We also had conversations with the Department of Public Safety for a presence at our airport, DOT for some ancillary transportation dollars with this MPO, and then additional FAA capital funding. And then every week they send us a legislative update on all the bills and the actions that are taken. And anytime you want a copy or any updates you need, please ask. For 2025, some of the goals that we have listed is to secure a federal appropriations for our wastewater improvement. We initially had $23 million that made it through the first round last time, and now it's going back through the process. Worked on a variety of FAA, AIP funding that was available for our master plan. Navigated through the 404 process for our wastewater treatment permit. adding the Wasilla Airport expansion to the STIP. Worked with the ADC to identify how we could fund some of the unfunded mandates like MS4, the lead copper inventory, and the UST tank replacement at Lake Lucille. And and also in conversation with possible FBO partners at the airport who can help us expand that. So if you want to, I can provide this list after. Thank you.
Also, keep in mind that he not only lobbies in the state, but at the feds. So we get 2 for the price of 1.
And did you say that he's helping find FBO partners? So he's working economic development as well as being a lobbyist?
Correct. And so we've had 5 really good conversations with some of the native corporations that are looking to expand their footprint out here.
Okay, Cassie, you want to take the library?
The library had the facility needs and concept study. The question that was asked was, has the council previously approved the concept of library facility upgrades through goals and initiatives, legislative priorities, or other action? And if so, please provide a copy of those documents. In your actual budget book on page 9, line item number 2, page 12, number 18, and page 16, number 45 and 47, all are towards the library. On page 9, number 2 is the city will prioritize the maintenance and the improvement of existing services and facilities as reflected by an approved budget for the FY 2024, which would be also in 25. On page 12, we have goal number 18, which is to establish our infrastructure maintenance and replacement reserves to proactively address the long-term needs of the city's infrastructure. And then again on page 16, number 45 is to promote the use of the city parks, museum, and library to foster cultural, recreational programs and events, and enhance the park experience by introducing new recreational equipment that appeals to all ages. And then also number 47 is to continuously improve the structures and the aesthetics of the downtown district, creating an inviting and visually appealing environment. And so with the need of our library growing, with its patrons coming in of over 104,000 during I believe a week, as I understand it, the need for us to have more space, to have more room for our collections and areas for our programs that we have for adults, young adults, even our children, need to be expanded because of this reason. And so this concept study on facility needs study will help us figure out the best areas within the 5 acres that the library exists on, where to have existing and connections of continuous growth with that, if the possibility should need to arise for us.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
just for a second. I don't know. It might have been hard for me to follow, but I did not get all the lines and everything on that. So is there something you could put, like Crystal did? Okay, thank you.
Okay, Eric?
Thank you, Mayor.
Back to the library.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So the question I saw on the paper here, it has the council previously approved the concept of library facility upgrades. You know, all I read and all I remember from those was pretty much just fluff. Yeah, we need to have a nice library. We didn't propose any specific upgrades or a study to say where do we need to be 5 or 10 years from now. Did I miss something?
Through the mayor, so you heard from Director Zane, who was talking about the pressures on his staff and the need for more staff because of the number of materials that go in and out every day and the time that his staff have to interact with the public. His proposal to the council is this $30,000 in funding to identify 2 areas that he sees as low-hanging fruit to expand the building. So he's extremely familiar with his own facility, and he sees 2 spots where the building could be expanded to give that extra space that he needs for staff activities and to help with the materials movement in and out. What he's looking for is support through this funding, if the council supports it, to bring consultants, probably an architect in, to identify which is most cost effective and which would be useful in that expansion. And so this, if this is funded, it would bring a document and a site plan that would then be brought to the council to say, we think this is a really wise way to expand. It brings these improvements, it meets these needs. Can we move ahead with whatever the cost estimate is to continue on that project? So this is the seed money to take a couple ideas that he has that would benefit his program and see if it's something that can become a building expansion at the library. And so this is the approval he's asking for. He's come a couple times and talked about the pressures at the library, but other than the goals and initiatives that Cassie pointed to, this is the new project that he would like the council to consider through this budget process.
Okay. Okay, Eric, continue on.
Okay. So I have the rest of the questions. So the first of my questions revolved around the mini excavator, which is part of the CIP request, which is asking for $125,000. So the first question is, how many times do we rent excavators? So I'm polling my roads and park supervisors. Excuse me. Roads tends to rent an excavator for about a month a year, up to 6 weeks. That's not limited by the amount of work. It's usually limited by the rental budget. And Parks has that much work as well, about a 6 weeks worth of work, if they have the rental budget too. So the request in purchasing a mini excavator that they would share, it would be through the roads fund, but they have a very good working relationship, is to have a machine that allows them to be flexible and address those projects. But in all transparency, if that wasn't supported by the council, I would request that we make a major upgrade to the rental budget so that they can get back onto those maintenance items. The next question is what size we're talking about, and I'll talk a little bit about what we use it for. The request is an excavator that would, a small excavator, has rubber tracks so that it can be driven on the road, and it would fit in a trailer that has a hauling capacity of about 18,000 pounds. There's a few models out there. Kubota is one of them, but basically it's a trailered excavator that would move in tandem with one of our two dump trucks that would allow us to get ahead on the ditching and the, let me see where our projects are. Our ditching projects, culvert repairs. We have a lot of culverts that have smashed ends. We have culverts we have to clean, and then you need to be there with an excavator. Removing deteriorated asphalt to make semi-minor hot mix repairs, bigger than we can do with hand equipment, but smaller than having a full-blown paving bid out there. And one of the reasons that ditching is so important is we place 2,000 to 3,000 tons of sand on our roads a year. Most of that ends up in the ditches. And because we haven't been able to stay on top of that, we have a lot of backlog of ditch cleaning to do. And then that leads to drainage issues. And so the roads department especially would like to get back to having a better return on ditch cleaning. And there's a lot of unmet projects within the parks, especially like around the continued cemetery expansion project. And then we haven't talked a lot about it, but there's been some expansion at the Lake Lucille campground and park where we've expanded some parking and removed some danger trees and stuff. So it's a very versatile piece of equipment that we either have had limited access through because of our rental budget or seek to have more access through by having one within the city heavy equipment fleet.
Madam Mayor. So I have a question. You said for use for ditching. Our new sweeper is supposed to pick that up, right? So I don't see the use of using the rubber track for ditching.
The sweeper won't pick it up out of the ditches, but it would pick up what we put down like next year or the year after that. So we do have a lot of unmaintained ditches that we need to get back to. There will always be some snow that, or some sand that makes it into the ditches. So it's kind of a two machine process, if you will, sweeping and ditching.
Madam Mayor, I have another question if so. So technically we only use it 2 weeks a year as of right now, and you say it's because our rental agreement, but clearly we know the rubber tracks, I mean, you're not using that really necessarily in the winter. That is not something that
The
you can-
excavator?
Yeah, the mini excavator.
I don't know of a project where we've used an excavator in the winter. That's
Yeah.
correct.
So I find it I just find that hard because only using it 2 weeks, that's just my
I
question.
would say 6 weeks for roads and 6 weeks for parks in the summer.
Or I'm sorry, not 2 weeks, sorry, 2
Yeah.
months,
Yeah.
sorry. Yes, 2 months. Thank you. Okay, continue over
Okay.
here.
Next question is about the loader mounted snow blower. So that request is a request for $225,000 for another loader mounted snow blower. So the first question was, what are the actual maintenance costs for heavy equipment in fiscal year 23 and 24? We've pulled together some numbers. It's not an exhaustive review, but today we were able to pull together fiscal year 24. We have a total of about $160,000 in heavy machinery repairs. You may recall last year, it spans 2 fiscal years, but we had the transmission in one of our graders go out. That was a very big repair. And so fiscal year 23, we have a repair cost of about $82,000, but that has less granularity than the fiscal year 24. It was kind of hard to pull those numbers together today, but the numbers I could get was 160 and 82,000. And then the next question was, where would snowblower live? It would be at the roads maintenance shop on Centaur. And the next question was, how much do we use a snowblower? So in the last 2 years, we have put more than 200 hours per season on the snowblower. And so it has been performing well, but we had a major teardown of it last year when it ingested some debris, and that took it out of service for quite a while. Actually, we had to. Thankfully, it's at the tail end of the snow season, but we did have a few snowstorms after it started. So it's a extremely important asset when we come to a lot of drifting events around Lake Lucille, on Weber, West Point, East Susitna by Lake Lucille, and then East Susitna by Depot Road. And then we also use it to load trucks. So it's extremely important downtown as we first plow onto the sidewalks and then plow off the sidewalks as far as we can, but we have very little right-of-way and there's things right on the back of the sidewalk. So then we bring in contracted trucks and we load those trucks with that snowblower, and then those contracted trucks haul the snow to first our snow dump on Centaur, and then in the last few years we've run out of space there, and then we take it to a backup snow dump on Mystery, and then a second backup next to the train depot where the concrete plant used to be. So it's been getting a lot more use, and it's approaching an age of over 590 hours, I believe. And so that starts to worry our crew about its ongoing reliability. So the request has the new blower become the primary, and the existing blower become the backup, and also the surge blower. So if DOT needs help or if Parks needs help, it makes our snow removal lineup more resilient to have a secondary one.
Madam Mayor? Oh, sorry, Sue. I didn't see that.
Yeah. So staying on the snow blower here, so we currently have a loader mounted snow blower that we're using, well, not very heavily, but consistently. So with the addition of a second loader mounted snow blower, this first one pretty much goes into a status of being a spare. Would we be better off disposing of that since you have this new one, which is theoretically much more reliable, as opposed to keeping a fairly expensive piece of machinery sitting on the lot?
Let me see if I can tell how old it is. So it's from 2014. So I would say it's fully amortized. And so that's where we get into this question about if you've had it for its whole life and you know its maintenance history, if you have 75% confidence in it being available, is it still an asset? Or if you've decided that it's completely unreliable, then I would tend to say that it's time to surplus it. To have a system where you can run 2 blowers at the same time, and if you lose the backup, you still have your main blower. That tends to lead to more efficient snow removal. We could have, there's enough trucks in the valley that we could have multi-blower snow removal operations and get downtown done faster, but not be at risk of losing our one snow blower. So it's the request of the roads crew that we have 2, so that we have that backup. But if the council decided that 1 was enough, they'd appreciate a new one.
But you're saying the roads crew is pretty well taxed doing what it is. Where are we gonna get somebody to operate the second snow blower?
We always can bring in a contractor too. We have, so renting a snow blower is not really common, but having a loader you can put a snow blower on is very feasible. Because it just rides on the front of it. It's its own power source.
So we would bring in a contractor to operate the blower, is that what you're saying?
If we needed to. Yep.
Madam Mayor, I actually have 2 questions because I missed it, if that's okay. You said how many hours were on, that we use that snow blower right now, this last winter?
More than 200.
More than 200. So what is our rental rate for the city for subcontracting, something like that?
I don't know the answer to that. I can look into that.
Okay, thank you.
That's all the snowblower question I have, or answers to snowblowers.
Madam Mayor? can I-
Yes.
I hate to do this. Can we jump back to the mini excavator?
Sure.
Just, I know we've had some questions, and it sounds like it's more about 3 months out of the year. You said each uses it about 6 weeks, so probably more like 3 months. How much money does it typically cost for like 3 months of a rental, mini excavator rental? If it was, we fully funded it
Yeah.
for you, how much would that be?
Yeah, so I asked our finance admin to look into it. It was about $4,500 a month to rent one.
Okay, so probably 4,500 times 3, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, and how much is the mini excavator that you're wanting?
We're asking for $125,000.
125,000, so would take us too long to probably break even on that purchase.
Yeah, if they're available, there is a short supply of mini excavators in the middle of summer with all the activity around here.
So, okay, so we could probably break even in about 3 years on that.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, one more question. So doesn't the city have priority with one of our contractors out there for
For
rentals?
rentals, I don't believe we have any rental priority. Mm-mm. We don't have any rental contracts. We have our heavy equipment per hour contractors, but we don't have a physical rental of a machine contract.
Madam Mayor?
Kathy?
And on that mini excavator again, just the quick question I have is, with the amount of hours that you're anticipating using it, you know, basically 3 months of the year, what is the life cycle, the lifespan of that piece of equipment?
Great question. We have been very capable of keeping our equipment running for 10 years or more. And so the snowblower is a great example. Snowblower is 2014, it's approaching 10 years. So we see no reason that it wouldn't have at least a 10-year lifespan.
Thank you.
Okay, next question I have answers for is about the Public Works office renovations line item in the capital projects, which is always hard for me to find.
Can you give us a page number on that, please?
Yeah, so I have it on 198.
$198, you said?
Yes. So the request is 75,000. I'm sorry, 25,000. And so I'll preface all the questions with why does it say Public Works? And that was just my brain talking about moving facilities within City Hall. So it's not just Public Works. It has to do with all of the rearranging within City Hall because Public Works is kind of the nexus of that. So the first question is, what are the office renovations in Public Works that have been completed this year? And so what we've seen is planning used to be upstairs across from the mayor's office. Planning is now down in what I would call the utilities wing. And so there was movement from both, there's work done both in planning side and utilities wing side that then moved IT back to an office. It's kind of complicated. And then, so there were rearrangements and office changes made in both locations. We refreshed the old planning office. We brought their equipment down and refreshed where they're at. My utility supervisor is still there, but IT moved out. And then we added a new position, the project manager on my side, but it was using storage and kind of scabbed together equipment and furniture to just get that started. And then we weren't sure exactly what would happen with the supervisor, the utility supervisor. So that project's almost done, but it's still kind of in flux, and that's why you see it's a limited budget request this year. It's not what last year's was. So in the process still is finalizing if utility supervisor stays there or if we need to make more room for the planner. We still have that open position, but we have two people in there working full-time, and then Crystal's, using her office basically as the acting planner. So I still think there's going to be changes that we need to make that I expect will move my utility supervisor somewhere else in the building. And then we have, we've been making the entrance changes both with the new wall that we put in the hallway so that visitors check in at one of the 3 offices before they head to the mayor's side. And then we've been replacing different doors. So anyway, that's what we have done, and we weren't, especially when we were building the CIP budget a few months ago, we weren't exactly sure how much further we needed to go. And so that's why you'd see it's reduced, but it's not zero. So I think that answers what we've done so far. And then the next question was, how many people visit Public Works counter each year? I don't have yearly numbers for that, but planning has been doing it, and so Public Works and Finance don't keep like sign-in sheets. So, and we don't have like a ticket taking, and we don't have door counters. Planning's been doing a great job of keeping track recently of how many people have attended. They have about 3 people per day on average. So I'm estimating up that we have more than them. So I'm saying we have about 5 per day, and then Finance has way more than us. So they're 10 per day. So yeah, so I don't have yearly numbers, but our goal is to make our systems less person necessary, so you don't have to come in. But we still have a lot of public, especially on the payment side, that want to come in and see someone. And then there's a question, how many employees have been hired to justify the need for additional workspaces? And so I hope I kind of covered that it's less about new employees and more about reorganizing and using the space to try to manage the building's not super effective for being a public building because of being an old school and ADA access and new security concerns. But we've added a project supervisor, project manager on my staff, and then I would say planning kind of has a new person, if you will, because of the backlog. We have a long-term temp that's working for us to work through those documents. So in essence, it's 2 new work positions, but it's reorganizing how the flow goes so that most of the public-facing offices are easy to access from what we're calling the new entrance on the main parking lot. And then there's a question about digital record keeping. That was a nod to what we're trying to do to make things more efficient. We're not trying to build more storage for paper. We, there are long-term storage items that do have to be kept somewhere, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're trying to figure out how to remove as many documents as possible, and that also means that there'll be a rearranging of physical filing cabinets, and with that usually comes repairs or there might be new furniture or something. So I think that's all the answers I have for those questions in that topic.
Quick question for you, Eric. On the Public Works office renovation, and then tying that into City Hall 2.0. I mean, are we gonna, stop one plan to build another? Or are we gonna take the plan that you have in your head and say, this is kind of how we want things to flow in a new or remodeled City Hall, or what? Is there any connection between these two items?
Yeah, I think good question. So, we have to be open for business whether or not there's a new City Hall. And so I think these changes that we're making to this building so that we can be more efficient, more effective, and give the access that the public wants are connected, but they're not. They don't exclude each other. So if in the future years, it's years away, we have a new City Hall, this building needs to be occupiable and functional until that happens. And then whatever the City Council decides to do with this building, I suspect it'll have some sort of life on. And so I think it makes sense that we would continue to make sure the boiler works and that the roof's not leaking. And so there'll be some sort of handoff, but we have 3 years, 4 years, 5 years before I think there'd be a reason to decide whether or not this building has a continued life. And so that means the city offices and the city business would continue to be here. And so as we try to make the city government more efficient, there's going to be need for ongoing funding to update and repair. And so this is an idea that, I mean, it could move to the operations budget, right? Because like the library has its own maintenance budget that our properties folks work out of. But this does too, but it hasn't really been addressed. So it doesn't really change. And so this is to bring the idea that there are things that continue to need to be updated in this building in front of the council versus just changing that operations budget.
I just wanted to add that about 2 years ago, we had a contractor come in and do an assessment on the security, and if we could get some badge cards or some white, everybody have a card instead of all the keys that we have. And at that time, they had given us an estimate over $100,000 just to upgrade it where it would be able to handle the electronics. And so as we go more digital, and we're hearing this from builders, is that you have to have some internal amp to continue to support your digital capacity.
And in that vein, we just know it didn't seem like a feasible cost, so we went with a less expensive, off-the-shelf key code that requires us to change it routinely, and so then we send out the notice that it's changed, and then everyone needs 5 tries to get in until they memorize it. But so we're trying to be frugal, we're trying to be responsible, but approach changes in the way we do business wisely as well.
So you mentioned maintenance versus capital. Do you really think this is a capital expense, or is this a maintenance expense?
I think it's a capital expense because I think it's alluding to the fact that we're trying to make some important changes, and so yeah, and it adds value to the building too. And so from the finance side, Cassie wants to track that as a capital improvement to the building as we make those improvements. Keep going? Okay. All right, next question is about train station improvement phase 2. So I've asked the clerk to hand out 2 11x17 sheets. The first one is titled City of Wasilla 2024 Site Improvements. It says train station for some reason. So if everyone's looking at that, this does not do a very good job of explaining what phase 2 is, but I'll do my best to explain to you. So if you think of the greater downtown train depot project, there's 2 parcels. There's the one that we have started to develop. It has the train station on it. It has the new access road with the loop at the end. And then there's the old borough property that had the concrete plant on it. So that is the concrete plant area is the bulk of phase 2. But in this drawing, what we're looking at is 3/4 of the build out is expected to be done by the end of this summer, except for pavilions, built pavilions. And so if you look at the drawing, you'll see a parking lot, you'll see what's called Depot 42 by 51. That's the existing depot building. And then on either side of it, you'll see a pavilion number 1. On the right, you'll see additive alternate pavilion number 2. Those are part of phase 2. And so in the request, I should have told you what page we're talking about. The request is also on 198. It doesn't go anywhere. So the request is for $63,000. And so that is for design that would bring us to fiscal year 26's request, which would be to design, then construct those pavilions, and then move us into more development on the concrete plant site. So the question was, show us drawings, and I'm just trying to show you that our intention is to have paving, landscaping, and pathways up to the railroad tracks by the end of this summer. And then the request for $63,000 will get us started on the design for pavilions on either side of the depot and move us into whatever the expansion ends up being over underneath Home Depot, where the concrete plant used to be.
And earlier you mentioned the snow storage on this plan. You said it was our secondary snow storage.
It's like our
Where
third
is that?
tertiary, yeah.
Tertiary. Where is that on this plan?
You can't see it on this drawing. They were driving off of that circle drive and going back up against that cut face.
Okay. Thank you. And then all the paving is going to be completed this summer with the exception of the large lot.
Yeah, correct. I don't have full clarity on how, with prices changing, we have an open contract with Dipper Construction, but we're balancing that with funds that we have now and the price of asphalt. So we're gonna pave as much as we can based on this design.
Madam Mayor.
Ian.
Thank you. So you're saying the 63,000 is for the pavilions. I mean, it looks like they were thought of, is this just due to the price increase of stuff that you say, hey, we need an extra 63,000 to get to those? Is that what I'm understanding?
So the conceptual design had gotten us kind of a architectural rendering, and it had showed how the flow would be. The pavilions have not been designed, so there's no structural package. Excuse me, they just have a rough footprint. So to get to a design that we could put out to bid to have them built, that still needs to be done by a design consultant. And so that's the bulk of this request this year, is to get that far, so that we have a request to move ahead with that. We have a design and then a cost estimate to move ahead with those. Moving on. That brings us to City Hall 2.0. And so that is on page 199. The request this year is for $50,000. And then the first question says, what does the study cover? And then the second question does a great job of asking what the study covers. So the study would look at the space needs, the optimum location, and the concept for what a new City Hall could look like. And so when we talked about it last week, Councilmember Johnson asked that we include a provision to look at an existing building somewhere within the city core that could be leased. And so those are the conceptual ideas that we want to talk about. So what city land do we own that's large enough? Well, let me back up. how large is our current facility and how does it meet our needs? The goal is to move MATCOM over with us as well. So how does MATCOM and the EOP's current building suit their needs? So they do an inventory of how big it is, how many people are in there, and kind of get a sense of if it's working or not working. And that architects, do this. They'll go through and do a sizing study and say, on average, you need this, that, and that. And then, public buildings with meeting places like this, there'll be kind of size constraints for the dais and stuff like that. So we would bring this generalized expectation for square footage, and then, is it a two-story building or whatnot? And then what sites would it fit on? And so I'm expecting to see what's the word? Well, it's a table basically, a feasibility table where it says we found these sites and how does it meet these needs? Close, not close, doesn't meet them at all, and then we can evaluate those and say, looks like this site or this opportunity rises to the top, and then a recommendation can be made and inferred from that, and then the council can decide if that's the direction we want to go based on the data we've collected and how we've organized it. And so that's why you see that in future funding requests. So if we come away with a good feeling that it continues and it's alive as a project, then the deeper planning, the deeper design would start the fiscal year after that. And that's why you see a proposal of about 1.4 million. That would be the meat and potatoes of the design.
Madam Mayor, I have one question. Have we thought about using this location right here?
This would be this would be like the null alternative where we say, could we survive tearing this down and building a new one? And how does that work? Where would we go while that happens and that sort of thing? Yeah.
With that study that you're talking about, over the last 10 years, I've been in a lot of city halls in a lot of different towns and things, and for a city our size, it's not unusual at all for City Hall or for city offices to be spread out. There is some administrative advantage to having them all in one spot, but there is typically a financial advantage to not having that happen, because you don't end up with building a building for a very specific need that changes all the time as the needs of the city and the size of the city change. So, when this study is going on, I would definitely like to see, what is the advantage or what is the disadvantage of keeping MATCOM where it is? What is the advantage of keeping Public Works and Planning in this building if we have other space for them? Can't we put them in their own space? That sort of thing. This is a historically significant building to the city of Wasilla and has served us well. It has some issues that need to be taken care of, but I'd definitely like to see us go forward with the attitude, not that we're going to build a new city hall, but that we're going to try and find out what the alternatives are and then look down the list and see what happens. So.
Okay, next question was about the Bumpus softball facility. And so that is the second 11.5 by 17 sheet that I gave you. So we heard a few months ago from the Softball Association talking about their desire to expand into more fields. But it also led to discussion on issues they're having right now with their current operations. And so they have, so what I've done is I've shown you what they showed us as their vision for growth. But that's not the bulk of the requests that you see on page 201 for 400,000. So I circled down at the bottom in red the existing fields and said fiscal year 25 request work area. So the bulk of the request for the 400,000 is to help them address drainage issues that they have every year around their bathroom and their concession stands. And then they have an unpaved parking lot that they say creates access problems for emergency vehicles. And so they'd like to look at paving as much of it as they can. And so this is an estimated guess on the bulk of the work to address their drainage issues, give them some better bathroom facilities out there, and then also start to address their parking so that they can have paved with striped parking so that's more efficient, and then they can have better access for emergency vehicles that respond. And then, they have more needs, and so we carried through further numbers for their requests that would go to a proposed access road that would add more parking on the northwest side, and then add 2 more fields beyond that. And that's just to kind of capture where they're thinking for the future, but, those aren't obligated under this budget process.
And you mentioned some sort of a public restroom facility. I don't see that on this.
Yeah, so they have some structures that are able to do that. They just haven't installed the septics, and so we were working with them as we dove into their existing facilities. My deputy administrator or director has been working with them to figure out how to do that effectively.
Madam Mayor, question. So across on the other side of Miss Street is the soccer fields
Yes.
and the water tank
Yes.
and everything else. None of that 400,000 is going to improve anything on that side?
Nope. This request was all for the softball side. We have a separate project this summer. We'll be paving the road all the way to the water tower. So that will have really cut down on the potholes that the soccer users have to drive through. But the softball, the nonprofit softball group came to us with their vision, and they're the ones that have been lobbying for this.
One more question, Madam Mayor. So on a side note of that, so if we're paving that, are we putting permanent bathrooms for that side?
We don't have any funding planned for bathrooms on that side.
Because we do have that full mile loop around those fields.
Correct. And the last question has to do with vehicle replacement. And so I believe that is stemming from page 202, where we see 2 vehicle replacement requests. One is under Public Works Administration, which doesn't mean like the little car that we have. It just means, I guess, what does it mean? How big is that fleet? Is it everything other than public safety? Yeah, it's everything. Yeah, okay, good. I just want to make sure. So it's everything public, yeah. Everything Public Works related, so water, sewer, roads, Parks and Rec. And then there's also, of course, public safety. And so the question is, do we have a fleet replacement schedule? And we have a fleet list, but we do not have a fleet replacement schedule. And so Cassie and I have been talking a lot about this. This is something that we need to grow into. We need to build. What we want to do is where we have not only our fleet list, which we usually use for like insurance purposes, make sure the registration's right and all that, but you set a lifespan to it, and you say, if I have a truck, it's going to have a lifespan of 10 or 15 years, whatever the industry standard is. I need to put money towards that one truck every year. If I have 10 of those trucks and they're all aging out at different times, I will be putting a certain amount of money in for all of those, so you're forward funding your fleet. So you always roll them over. And unfortunately, what we've experienced, and the chief as well, is even if you plan a year in advance, you still may not get those vehicles now. So it's really important that maybe we even get to 2 years in advance replacement. So we say, we've saved up the money, this has hit the end of its life, it's gonna go surplus or whatever it happens to it, and we'll pre-order that. And then that does allow us to get onto those state procurement group orders if they're open and get better prices. So that's kind of what fleet management is. There are some options. Do you want me to talk about enterprise? So we have been talking to private industries, private companies like Enterprise Cars. They do have a wing that manages fleet, and it's a pretty interesting process. But they basically privatize your fleet, and they you work out what your fleet looks like, and then they take and replace them as necessary. And it is like a contractual relationship where we don't have to go buy them. We're basically long-term leasing them. And they do have repair shops in town today that are their partners. And so when they need oil changes, they say, get that rig over there, and they take care of it. And so it can remove the hassle from having a legitimate modern fleet management system. So that might be something to talk about with the council moving forward, because pretty interesting how they leverage big data. I don't know if you know about Enterprise's business model, but they buy new cars, they rent them for a certain amount of time, and then they sell them at the opportune time to then keep funding their business. They make most of their money on the resale of vehicles that they know that they kept well maintained, and so they are it's in their best interest to do a good job, keep that resale high, and keep turning those vehicles over and over and over. And somebody figured out that, hey, we could do that for private fleets too. It doesn't just have to be our rental fleet. So that's something else we're trying to evaluate as its opportunity.
And Eric, you said that would be something interesting to talk about with the council. Could you schedule sometime in the next couple of months to either have Enterprise or you and Enterprise talk to the council about that concept?
Yeah, absolutely. Cassie's been sharing our information so they can start to show us how that might work. So we're having those discussions so we can talk more informative about it. And that's the end of my question and answer.
Okay, thank you. Now we are moving on to the amendments. On amendment number 1. Ian, this is yours. You want to speak to it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Oh, we need a motion.
Madam
Sorry.
Mayor, I move amendment number 1.
Graham seconds.
Okay, it's been moved by Ian Crafton and seconded by Stu Graham for approval of amendment number 1. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor, thank you. I might, Eric, if you don't mind stepping in with this one. I had discussed this with him. Basically, we all know our wastewater master plan was, I believe it was something we'd thrown into our financial goals as well, that we wanted to start making headway on design and future plans as to basically what needs to be done with it. And so I had chatted briefly with Eric about it as to, hey, what does it look like? Partly, why didn't we have it in the budget this year as well? I was expecting to see it. And I guess Mayor, if you don't mind, Eric, go ahead if you want to kind of fill in from there.
Yeah,
Eric?
sure. We're in a catch-22 where we know we need to expand, and we know we have these emergency repairs we need to make, and so it is wise. I was thinking that our master plan was from 2010, but that was actually the borough's septage plan. Crystal reminded me it's from 2000, so I think it's an extremely wise. We need to do it. Crystal and I have been talking to DEC about having a program where they help us with that. It's like a 75-25 relationship. And that was something that we had started the grant process on, but with the EDA grant and the EPA grant, we just couldn't meet their deadline. And so talking with Mr. Crafton, his proposal is that we forward fund this even if we go back to DEC and receive some of the grant money back for it, because they still will support us, it doesn't matter. But to get it moving is critical as we try to, keep things permitted operating like we need to at DEC, but also plan for the future. And that's really what we need to do, right? Is we're going to continue to grow in the next decades. We need to have a plan that guides us, that we can turn around and look at every year and refresh.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It seems to me that one of our legislative priorities was a wastewater master plan for $750,000. Is that not? Am I recalling that correctly? And obviously that didn't get funded this year, but I believe it was a federal request, wasn't it?
You are right. Yep, we did make that request to Senator Murkowski, but it was not funded.
Okay, so follow up on that. If our request was for $750,000, what are we gonna do with $250,000? I mean, are we gonna start something and then have to restart it, and depending on whether we get funding this year, next year, 2 years down the road? How's that gonna work?
No, I mean, we would go out for RFP, we'd tell our consultants that we have 250,000, and that's a reasonable number that, from what I've seen from other similar, master plans is feasible, so we would ask them to remain within that budget and we would have a master plan from it. So, the discrepancy between what we ask from the feds and what we fund ourselves, I mean, we've asked for 35 million for our airport, right? So we do what we can with what we can afford. And if the feds want to give us 750,000, we'd complete the study and move ahead with whatever is left, so.
Well, I guess the question is the $250,000 a Band-Aid, or is it a fix? I mean, are we looking for a Band-Aid so that we can, continue to patch things together, or are we gonna continue to fight for a fix? And if that's what we're gonna do, shouldn't we be funding the fix?
Well, I don't think an update to the master plan is a Band-Aid. We have one that's old. We can look at it and say, well, we never went that way, or this idea is probably not feasible anymore. So, it's a planning document that looks at the historical use and how it's changed and what we project the growth will be now. So if we'd never had a master plan, then I think it would be a lot more work, right? There's no skeleton, there's no backbone, but to update it based on what's changed in the last 20 years, I think the number that Ian and I talked about is reasonable.
Madam Mayor, out of curiosity, what was the 750 why were we asking for 750 if we thought we could do it for 250? Now, it's a little curiosity here.
You want to answer that?
So 750 was a figure that we received from Murkowski for the airport master plan, and that was for phase 1 and phase 2. And so because we have not done a sewer plan update, we assume that it potentially could be phase 1 and phase 2. So that is what we've learned with the airport master plan. And we've also, in a lot of conversations with our senator, the funding agencies, whether it's EPA or Department of Commerce, they want to see that you've clearly vetted the thought process before they give an appropriation for an upgrade. So it's really instrumental that we have that.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So if we update the wastewater master plan, because it is very old, I understand that, is this something that you can get out to RFP and you perceive actually getting a master plan completed this year?
I would say that, so if you say fiscal year, yes, I think we could, but not by the end of 2024. So it would be a year from this time again. It'd be a year or more from now. I would say 12 to 18 months is probably the lifespan of completing the master plan, so.
And you feel that the 250,000 is enough to cover that?
I do at this point. I don't know how much the last one cost, to be honest. So without having a reason to say it will cost more, I think 250,000 is a workable number.
And you anticipate that being possibly just a phase 1?
Yeah, correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think what's going to happen is part of this master plan will say, well, are you on the verge of becoming a different entity within DEC's eyes, right? That's something we've never experienced. We're going through the permitting process right now of our current treatment plant. There is a risk that the master plan says you are very close to being a whole new animal, and that might bring some changes. So it'll be a learning experience for all of us. So it's the best estimate I can give at this point.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor? Yes. So a question for you. I've heard from a couple of us that it's crucial that we have this, right? Why did our administration not bring this to the table?
Administration?
Mm-hmm.
As in, why didn't I have it on the CIP?
Correct.
Um,
Oops, correct.
Yeah. Well, we've been so focused on getting the permit for our current facility and then dealing with the sludge monies that we have coming. It's just been, kind of on the back of our minds.
I would just add that we had a conversation with DEC in March, and we brought up this, we wanted to understand more of their granting capabilities, and so they have what they call revolving loan, where you pretty much will get 75 reimbursement once you have completed the plan, but it's a loan until you complete it, and then you get 75% back. And so that was the first strategy, was to go ahead and apply for the grant with ADEC. But like he said, between the EPA and the EDA and the other grants that we have, we don't have a grant writer internally. We all do it in addition to our job. And so we did not, we told DEC we're gonna go ahead and apply when the next opening is, which is July. So that would be the secondary plan, is to apply with DEC.
So, a couple more things to follow up on. I mentioned earlier that this was a federal legislative priority for us. If we decide to include this $250,000 in the budget, are we then retracting our legislative request for this? And then number two would be for Eric, if this plan comes up and says, you guys are up against the wall, you're looking at the wrong thing, and we move into a different classification of septic treatment plant or whatever we want to call it, are there provisions at the federal level to help fund that change, or is this pretty much just an unfunded mandate? Hey, you guys are changing, you need to fix it.
No, I think there's a lot of support. So I think, on the federal request, it's, Murkowski comes back, or their staffer comes back and says, what do you need? Do you still need this? It's very dynamic. There's a lot of communication back and forth. So if we find out through this study, if it's funded, that there's something we didn't anticipate, we need to respond to it. It doesn't change that we need to address it. We've had support to figure that out. We have guidance on, something we didn't anticipate coming down the road, and we just need to meet those challenges head on. I think it's very valuable to have support and, the structure that the report brings, the structure that consultants bring for having worked with other communities, knowing the pitfalls and knowing what DEC has for thresholds to say, it's our professional opinion, you need to watch out for this, or you need to start planning for it. So, it's like having new windshield wiper blades on your car. It only leads to understand what's coming down the road better, or brighter headlights or something like that. So, worst case scenario, we go out for RFP, we get a consultant, and they say, we've done a bunch of research, there are some serious problems, you need to know X, Y, Z. We bring that back to the council and we say, this is what we found out, what do you want to do, what should we do? Here's our recommendation. It wasn't 250, it was 500,000. That's still the council's decision. It's still the existing problem. It didn't make a problem, it just eliminated a problem that we need to deal with. So I think it's a good start. I don't want to say that it must be 750,000. I think we would have very good insight into what the next decades look like for our sewer system by starting this. And so I hope we've explained that. I think it's a important process, but I also don't want to commit that it's, $750,000 either, so.
Ian?
Thank you. And part of also what our deputy administrator had mentioned too is the next opening for the grant is July, you had mentioned. Part of my idea with putting this forward now was I didn't want it to be, for whatever reason, we don't get the grant, we need to wait, and here we are next year having this conversation again, saying, hey, we need this money, the wastewater's still, still a concern. I'd rather, let's put this forward. Like Eric said, at the end of the day, if we end up needing more to get this project to the end, we're gonna need to do it one way or another. I still like the idea of pursuing our grant options though and seeing how, it's always great if we can get some of this money put back in our pocket ahead of time. So I just didn't wanna miss the opportunity over the next year and be in this same boat next year.
Okay, Madam Mayor. So question, like you said, it's the federal is July 1st for the grant, right? So, I mean, it's already June. There's no way this could be orchestrated to even throw that kind of money to be able to get that all put together. So would we miss that grant again?
So the application process opens in July.
Right.
And it's open through, I think it's mid-September. So I think it's reasonable that we can get those put in. We are working with a contractor who's already been very successful at getting those grants from DEC. The other thing I would bring up is that the senator did have her staff come out this week and tour our treatment facility because we put our request again into the federal portal for the upgrades out there. And we mentioned to them that we are proceeding forward with the update to our master plan. And she said, I love to hear that because the senator's going to hear stuff like that. Because of all the money that has come from the federal government through these different acts, the IDJA and all these others, there's been a significant amount of funding that has went out to rural Alaska for wastewater treatment, and really it's just now that they're coming back. I'll give you an example. Tyonek got $35 million for a new wastewater treatment plant, and they have 750 people. They did not have to do a master plan. But because of our size, we're in a very unique situation because we're big enough to be municipal now that we're a metropolitan, designee from the census, but we're not small enough that we get the smaller appropriations. So the first and second rounds of funding have went through and some of it is coming back. And so I think it's a very good sign when she sends her staff out to do an evaluation. Put things in perspective of our challenge.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Hearing none, amendment number 1 is adopted. Passes.
Madam Mayor, if I may suggest, since we're having this discussion on capital projects, that we kind of stick with capital projects for a while today, and then next time move on more into the operational stuff so that we're not bouncing back and forth between operational issues and capital issues. Just a suggestion.
Well, we've only got 3 more amendments.
And they're all operational.
Yeah, and they're all operational.
Right.
So we don't have any other capital.
Well, there are some capital things I'd like to discuss, but I'm not prepared to put forward amendments at this time until I talk to the staff, so. But, yeah, let's go with number 2.
Okay. I need a motion for amendment number 2.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve amendment number 2.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I second.
The motion has been made by Councilwoman Cottle and seconded by Councilwoman Velock. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor, could we get our deputy administrator just to briefly summarize, and some of these acronyms in here would be a little helpful too.
Thank you. Through the mayor to the council. So this line item has been in here probably as long as my mother's old. It is a membership to the American Planning Association and the American International Certified Planners. Most of those dues and subscriptions, I haven't seen anything come from them in the almost year that I've been acting planner. Most planners will bring a membership with them. So I wasn't able to see what we're really getting for that. And then the 7,000 was for planning reference books and subscriptions. And when we moved planning down to Public Works, there was a pretty large library of planning reference materials that were from the 80s and 70s and 80s. Most of this is online now. And so I reached out to Public Works, Finance, and even Recreation with Scott and asked them how planning could be more of an asset for data that they're concerned with. And so we found a really great tool called geosteering, and it allows us to collect data that is really instrumental on the planning side, especially when someone comes in for a permit and they don't know the traffic counts that are going past this potential business. We can geo-track it, and we can get a whole day's volume of traffic, or we can get 5 days if finance calls us because they have a business that's not paying sales tax. We can see the amount of traffic or the amount of customers that go there. We found out 24% of the wrestlers go to IHOP for pancakes before the wrestling tournament, and then they go to Fred Meyer's. So it's really good information that we can provide for applicants or for our internal customers to be of value when somebody says, why should I come to the city of Wasilla, and have a valuable tool that they can come in and we can show them on the screen that, this is the piece of property you're looking at. This is why we're gonna have you do a traffic analysis before we give you the plan. But we don't have any of that data right now. So when they give us an application, we pretty much just accept they've done their homework. And then what happens is they come back and say, geez, we had no idea we needed 70 more parking spots, because they didn't expect the traffic. And so it's really it's a citywide tool, but I think planning should probably consider it to be a cost that we can work collaboratively with all of our, even code compliance, saying, this is the data that we're finding. Scott and I were talking, director for Menard Center, about some of the larger tournaments coming, these are visitors coming from all over the state and sometimes from the lower 48, but we don't know, we don't have that data. We've also talked to Public Works in this water, and especially the water conversation, is how many people are coming to our bulk water stations, and they are users of our water, but they don't have an account here. So are they coming from Willow 3 times a week? Are they coming from Talkeetna? Are they coming from Sutton? So we can geo-track our bulk water stations, and it can show us how far people are coming in and how often they're coming to get water. And I don't know how else we can make these data-driven decisions if we don't have it. And so this is a membership that's annual. So what I did is I took the $8,200 out for what has been in the planning budget for a while, and I added the additional cost of the subscription, which is citywide. But I put it into the planning. We're averaging right now about 21 calls a day, and 3 to 5 people a day walking in. And the first thing they're asking is they want us to pull up the screen, and we are that first point of contact. And I think the more that we can share with them, the less headache we're gonna have in the permitting process for sure. And we won't be chasing people around like we are now, trying to, really build relationships and have some value. And so that's what this cost adjustment would be.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Just for clarification, because the account numbers look the same here. So are we increasing the budget by 14, or are we decreasing it by 2,500?
We're increasing it by $5,750, so $5,700. It's already been in the
So
line
we already
item.
have the 8,250. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And you're right, it's the same account. I just wanted you guys to have a clear understanding of why we made that pivot.
Mr. Gray?
Thank you. And Madam Deputy Administrator, you mentioned that most planners have individual subscriptions here. Is that the way it is, like in Palmer and in Anchorage and Houston, for instance?
Yeah, they're individual memberships.
And does the city pay those, reimburse them for those, or?
We have in the past. Yeah.
So under this plan, we would not. When we get a new planner on board, if they maintain those certifications, it would be out of their pocket?
Well, and this was interesting because it's two organizations, Alaska Plan, or the American Planning and American International of Certified Planners. I am not even sure if that $1,000 covered both, but have you seen invoices or anything from them? No. So it's been in there, but I haven't seen anything from them. So if a new planner came on and they had a subscription, then I would reimburse them for that because it is part of their membership. It would be reimbursed.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, then amendment number 2 passes. We are moving on to amendment number 3. Is there a motion to pass amendment number 3?
Madam Mayor, I move amendment number 3.
Okay, is there a second?
Cottle seconds.
It has been moved by Ian Crafton, seconded by Kathy Cottle to approve amendment number 3. Is there discussion?
If we could get a staff report on this, please.
Okay.
Lori, do you want to speak to this?
Good evening. This is on staff for my IT person that we have there. They have increased the contract pricing up to $180,000, and that's the reason for the addition. I believe it's about was it a $50,000 increase? Yeah, about a $50,000 increase. I would love to keep him. He's a wealth of knowledge. We're going to have many changes this coming year, and just being able to have Mike there would be a huge advantage for us.
And in the budget for MATCOM itself, I mean, you're proposing a 0.6 FTE increase in your staff and this as well, is that?
Yeah, this is keeping Mike and then adding Joel full-time, or that IT person, technical consultant person full-time.
So has the workload or the complexity increased to such a nature essentially that you're adding? Well, this one here, we're just, covering the expense of the contract, because this person doesn't work for us, right? He works for ACS?
Yes.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
the 0.6.
This person also works for the city as well, IT. He does many things. He's in my budget, but he does many things for the city. He's my lasso, which is our CGIS position, so he takes care of CGIS stuff for us, for the department. Just a lot of different aspects of there at MATCOM. In addition to that, then the other 0.4 that we're asking for, that's radios for MATCOM. We have some additions this year with a CAD upgrade. Both of these two people are very important for that CAD upgrade. In addition, our phone system will need to be, going out for bid for a new phone system next year, and that will be something that'll be a huge piece to undertake as well. So there's a lot of moving parts and pieces for the next generation 911.
And just to be clear, Madam Mayor, there's nobody in the city has a potential conflict of interest with ACS TechMate that you're aware of? Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion?
Madam Mayor, just for clarification, so this person, you said is in your budget right now? Okay, and so they pretty much hang out at MAPCOM?
Their office is at MATCOM.
Okay, now do they report to Steve, the city IT person, or?
They work with Steve as
They
well
work
as
with
myself,
Steve?
yes.
Okay, they don't necessarily report to him, they're,
I believe he reports to Steve,
okay, I was
yeah.
just kind of wondering who he would report to. And you say he's on staff right now, but just not full-time, or?
No, he's full-time.
He is full-time?
He's full-time there.
Okay, that's all, thank you.
Thank you.
Mike has been here since Sarah Palin?
Yes.
Yes. So he's a wealth of knowledge. So is there further discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, then amendment number 3 passes. Amendment number 4. And do I have a motion on amendment number 4?
Madam Mayor, I move amendment number 4.
Is there a second?
Graham seconds.
The motion has been made by Councilman Crafton and seconded by Councilmember Graham. Is there a discussion?
Could we just, Madam Mayor, could we just get another staff summary on this one explaining
Sure.
kind of?
Lori?
Yes, I've asked for additional, many of those that are on there will be reimbursed through the 911 fund, but we have to pay for it in advance. We have the text to 911 technology, the SBC, the session border controllers that are new. We're trying to, wanting to add in, right now we do priority dispatch for protocol dispatching for fire and EMS. I would like to add in a law enforcement piece to that, and we do not have that currently established. And that'll help with, I believe, our staffing levels and training time. Right now it takes about 8 months to train people. 3 months for a call taker, 8 months for a full-time dispatcher. And adding in that law enforcement piece can help reduce the amount of time that it takes to train someone. So that's a huge piece for us. We are down quite a few emergency telecommunicators right now. So being able to get that piece will help us get staff in the door quicker. A lot of great applicants out there right now, but I just can't get them in quick enough. And so I'm afraid I'm gonna lose a lot of good people just because I can't get them in and get them trained. So it's a big part of what my budget is, as well as the next generation technologies. There's a lot of things we're lacking in there for being able to locate people. And so some of these technologies that I'm wanting to bring will help with location information, with being able to locate people when they call 911.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you. So you mentioned, difficulty in replacing persons or bringing persons up in a timely manner. Is there some sort of a national or state program to help bring people up to speed where they can then receive local training? Or are you going, since Stu Graham walked in the door today and said, hey, I want to be a dispatcher, and you said, hey, can you type 35 words a minute? Can you talk on the phone? You said, great, sit in the chair there and we'll get you going. Is that?
MATCOM's pretty unique. I've been in this business for 27 years now. MATCOM's very unique. We do a lot of different things we have the State Emergency Operations Center. We have other pieces and parts that we take care of, the judicial services, that are things that you can't train nationally for. There are things that are similar across different 911 centers, but 10 codes, the phonetics, just all the different pieces that you need things are so unique to MATCOM. So even here in the in-state, things are different from one 911 center to another. So it takes a lot to train. There are things we can do to help, but that I've added there, like I said, but it's, MatCom's a unique place. So it does take a long time to train, but I think there's some things there that can help.
And the second part of that would be, is this a one-time increase that you're seeing, or you think this is gonna be a
Those are
continual?
continual pieces that we'll need to do, and, yeah.
So FY 25's ending budget amount of 820, we could expect to be closer to 926.
With the new phone system next year, which the phone system should be able to be completely reimbursed through the 911 funds. But yeah, we'll need a new 911 phone system next year, so I bet I will be back asking for more next year, unfortunately.
That's what that chair is for. So.
Yeah.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, and the motion passes.
Well, Ms. Creaky's at the desk. Have we tried to work with the Matsu School District on some dispatcher? It seems to me a couple of years ago we were trying to work something out where we could get some basic dispatcher skills and people could find out a little bit about the dispatch, career, job, whatever you want to call it. Is that dead, or are we still working that, or?
I actually did just reach out to Matsu Central, but I haven't reached out to anyone further from that. But it's been a busy last, 5 months that I've been here, and so I just haven't had time to delve into that yet. But that is something that I did call Matsu Central about the other day to see what we could do to maybe come up with some kind of curriculum for that. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Graham, I think at one time and I can't remember what school it was in, it might have been Wasilla High, but we tried to have a program with them training. Then everything was dispatchers. There was no distinction, and it just never did fly. Whether it would now or not, I don't know, but.
Well, maybe we could have the discussion with the school district again, since there is so much more emphasis on, workforce development and, in particular areas, so.
Yep.
Sounds like it makes sense. Sounds like you have a continual problem. I won't say problem, but a continual concern with being able to bring in dispatchers and see that they have the skills necessary if somebody was to pre-screen those essentially through a Matsu Borough training program. That seems like that would make your job a little easier.
It's been done in many places. It's possible. I've seen it fail. I've seen it work. Just have to see.
Well, I kind of look at that like the police reserve program. We used to have a very robust police reserve program. We used to have a robust police explorer program for younger folks. So it's possibilities out there. I'd be interested to find out if next year maybe the school district might be more interested in that. But thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. That is all the amendments that was put forward.
Madam Mayor,
Mr.
I'd like
Graham.
to continue this meeting till the next scheduled meeting, which I believe is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Monday, June 3rd, 6 o'clock. So you're gonna postpone the ordinance to?
Postpone the ordinance until the next scheduled meeting of Monday, June 3rd. I do have some amendments that I'm working on to bring forward.
Can we postpone till 5 instead of 6?
Unfortunately.
Oh, she can't come, never mind.
You can do 6. And I've noticed I have, unfortunately.
Well.
We'll get it.
So I make that motion to
Okay.
postpone to time certain.
Is
Rubeo
there-
seconds it.
All right, the motion has been made by Councilmember Graham, seconded by Councilmember Rubio to postpone the meeting, the budget meeting until Monday, June 3rd at 6 p.m. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, then the motion passes. All right, we are now at persons to be heard, a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. This is not a question and answer period or time for dialogue. Speakers may be referred to administration, or issues raised may be taken under advisement by the council or administration. There is no one signed up. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forth? Seeing no one, we will close persons to be heard. There is no unfinished business, no new business. We're on to audience comments. Audience comments is a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. This is not a question and answer period or a time for dialogue. Speakers may be referred to the administration, or issues raised may be taken under advisement by the council or administration. Is there anyone present who would like to address the city council? Okay, seeing no one coming forth, then audience comments is closed. Bring it back to the dais. Madam Clerk.
No comment, Madam Mayor. We'll just see you all here next special meeting.
Okay. Councilmember Cottle.
No comment, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Graham.
I'd like to thank the staff for pretty complete explanations of what was going on. That makes it a lot easier to understand when we're able to ask questions and see that you're prepared, both through your staff summaries and through the questions you answered. So good job today. I appreciate it all. Thank you.
Councilmember Velock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also want to thank administration for being very prepared. It went very smooth and it was very informative and helps us do our job, so thank you.
Councilmember Rubeo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would also like to thank you. I threw those questions on. I just had to do my homework, and you guys did amazing with that. And I look forward to just a couple of those coming back at us with some stuff. But thank you.
Okay. Thank you, staff. Good job as usual. I appreciate your
Mr.
hard
Crafton?
work. Huh?
Is Mr. Crafton gonna be
No,
there?
I left him out. Oh, I skipped him. You should have, anyway. Councilmember Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. I also just want to thank the staff with the explanations. It is always good to get. Again, you never know how much information we do want with these, and no matter how many questions we ask, or however much information you give us, there's always something else that we think of with that. And also just comment along the lines of, I know we ask a lot of questions, and sometimes I feel like we're beating you guys up a little bit, but it's never trying to be mean. It's just coming from a genuine place of curiosity that we just want to better understand what you're asking for and what we're trying to do here, so that we have the best understanding of what we have to make the decisions moving forward. So looking forward to seeing you guys on Monday. Thank you.
Now it's my turn. Anyway, thank you, staff, for all of your hard work. I appreciate every one of you. And to the council, I think all of you recognize that we are the fastest growing city in the state. And with that comes growing pains. I mean, our infrastructure is old. We have got to get it up, and before EPA comes in and does us like they did Palmer. So, anyway, I appreciate everybody's hard work. So, we'll see you here Monday at 6 p.m. We are adjourned at 7:39.
I'd be interested in